Gators Breakdown episode 49 is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters, and you can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SCC. My co-hosts, Joey Vizzi and Bill Sykes, will be taking the week off this week. Getting the bearings right, getting ready for spring practice. This is not our main job, so those guys take some time off with some family and jobs and all that good stuff. But I'll be here like always on Gators Breakdown. You can find us all on SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube. Just search on those sites and get the links by following us on Twitter at Gators Breakdown and on Facebook. Just search Gators Breakdown on those sites. And also share the show if you like it. Leave a review, rate on iTunes, all that stuff to help us out here on Gators Breakdown. Spring practice will be starting today, whenever you listen to this. I know it's late Monday night right now, so you may probably listen to this on either Monday night or Tuesday, but spring practice will be starting very soon for the Gators. And Jim McElwain had his press conference late last week, kind of previewing the spring from his point of view. And some things he said caught some attention from some people, so kind of ruffled some feathers. I didn't think it was happening. I thought some people knew, but late last week there was just one thing that was said that surprised some of you out there, but it really shouldn't have. Jim McElwain was discussing the quarterback battle. We're all talking about and taking a very close look at this spring. We all knew it was Feleipe Franks and Kyle Trask that are going to be the two main guys in the battle, but many of you were still surprised when McElwain threw true freshman and early enrollee Kadarius Toney into the mix as well. Some out there even saying that this means Jim McElwain is lacking confidence in Feleipe Franks and Kyle Trask. I heard it from numerous people who reached out to me on Twitter about that, and this is absolutely not the case here. Now, this wasn't the majority of people out there saying this, but it was out there. It was brought up enough to where I feel like I needed it to be brought up to be discussed. First and foremost, Toney was told when he was being recruited by Jim McElwain and Doug Nussmeier and the Gators that he would get a chance to prove himself at quarterback first. I thought this was out there enough where people knew this was going to happen this spring, but I guess not. Either people didn't know, overlooked it. I don't know. I thought we were under the assumption Toney was going to play quarterback this spring, but I guess of not. It caught some people by surprise. But this is the main reason this is happening. And Toney deserves a chance after what we've seen from the position the last few seasons. Go back and look at his stats. I mean, his senior season, he finished with 2,894 yards passing and 32 touchdowns through the air. Also ran for 894 yards and 15 touchdowns. His junior season, year before, passed for 3,604 yards, 37 touchdowns, and rushed for 896 yards and 16 touchdowns. With those stats, he deserves every chance to come in and earn some playing time at quarterback. I don't necessarily think he'll win the job or anything, but throw him out there. I mean, Florida needs a third quarterback right now anyway in spring. You don't want to just roll out there with two. And give him every opportunity. He brings something different to the table. So another big reason this is a good thing for Florida. Do you remember the last couple seasons under Jim McElwain? You never know what can happen. McElwain has had to go to a backup quarterback in each of his first two seasons. We all remember Real Greer suspension. In comes Treon Harris, and he couldn't run the offense. Last season, a very average at best Luke Del Rio goes down with an injury. In comes Austin Appleby, who was just a little better. I mean, what if something like those scenarios happen again in 2017? McElwain wants to be ready. What if Franks or Trask have a really good spring where they separate themselves from the other? And the other knows he may not have a shot, and he decides to transfer. Look at who your second quarterback is going to end up being. It's going to be Kadarius Toney, who's had maybe a spring under his belt. Now, don't get me wrong. That's not the likely scenario, but it exists out there. And if that happens, you now have another quarterback that's taking some reps in Jim McElwain's offense, one that brings something different to the table. And I'm not calling for Toney to win the job, but maybe there is enough out there to earn him some playing time. And I'm not, don't rub this the wrong way. Don't take it the wrong way. Kind of like Tebow his freshman year. a quarterback that can come in and move the chains, has a little bit of a threat of a pass where a big play can happen, a way to make some big plays happen. Florida's lacked that in the last couple seasons. There's just not enough big plays to be made on the field. This might be a way to produce some of those. Toney gets in the backfield as more of a wildcat style quarterback, but I mean, from his stats in high school, we've seen he has the ability to throw the ball. I know it's different between high school and college. I'm not trying to make the correlation there, but the threat exists. He can come in and maybe be a threat. He's brings something different to the table than McElwain's traditional pro style 6'5", 6'6" quarterbacks who look like your prototypical pro style quarterback. Max got to find something on offense, and if Franks or Trask can't get it done, this is the guy. I still think Franks and Trask are the guys. I don't think this is a shot at them by any means. Like I said, he wanted to give Toney a shot. That's what he told him in recruiting, and that's part of it. I mean, Luke Del Rio's out for the spring. Jake Allen's not coming in until this summer. So Florida could use a third quarterback to take the reps, and Toney's that guy. He can also, I mean, don't forget about this. He can also help the defense, so they can have some reps. This defense that's replacing 7 starters. Give them some reps against a mobile quarterback that have the threat of passing as well. This is an important spring for the defense just as much as it is the offense of what's going on there. So, I mean, I think you have to look at it that way too. He can help the defense, but he brings something different to the table. And this is not a shot at Franks or Trask. This is McElwain living up to his promise of telling Toney he could come in and earn every opportunity to play quarterback. We'll see. I mean, Franks will roll out there first, or Trask will roll out there first. The other guy will be second, and Toney will be third. I don't know how many reps he'll get. We probably won't know. Only the first parts of practice are open to media. So, I mean, there's just not enough to sit here and say Jim McElwain wants to throw Kadarius Toney into the mix because there's no confidence in Franks or Trask. I don't see it. And I thought people knew out there that this was a possibility and the more likely scenario that it was going to happen after what Kadarius Toney said in interviews leading up to his commitment, leading up to his recruitment, leading up to when he was signing, that he was going to get a crack at quarterback at Florida. So I ran a poll on this over the weekend after I saw this as a negative. And it looked like the vast majority could see why McElwain was doing this. The question was, is Toney playing quarterback an indictment on Mac's lack of faith in Franks and or Trask? And I told you guys when I tweeted it, not at all at the time. The results were overwhelming in answering, no, it is not an indictment on Franks or Trask, with 88% voting that way. So a lot of you out there did see that Florida needs a third quarterback in spring practice. And Toney was told he's going to get the opportunity. That's really all this is. There's no need to get up in arms. There's no need to feel like Jim McElwain doesn't have confidence in Trask. Well, there we go. I combined their names, Franks and Trask. Maybe we'll see that out there. Maybe if they can't get it done somehow to combine those guys, Trask. But there we go. But maybe that's what happens. It's just he's there as an option for this spring. Maybe he surprises. Maybe he can get on the field. I do expect maybe, and I even said this last week in our spring preview with Thomas Goldcamp and Bill, that it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Toney have a couple packages if he can prove himself a game and change up some things in a game type situation. So I think, more speaking to, if you really want to nitpick and say, what's the confidence in Franks or Trask, is over the weekend, Brandon Harris, former LSU quarterback, saying he's talked to a couple SEC schools, and if you read the tea leaves, he wouldn't come out and say the school, but you could tell one of them was Florida. Now, if you want to go that route and talk about Brandon Harris, then maybe that's where you can kind of point to. There's a lack of a little bit of a confidence maybe in Franks or Trask, but not the Toney situation. Not at all. I don't see the Brandon Harris one being as either. I don't necessarily see him coming to Florida. Is there another quarterback out there? Rumors are there could be another one on his away in May. We'll see what happens there. But we'll see. I just don't necessarily think this whole Toney situation is anything to be up in arms about. So, looking back at what Jim McElwain also said before spring practice starts here, injury report, not a big deal. 7 players will miss spring practice due to injury. Antonio Riles, Luke Del Rio, of course, we knew about that. Defensive back Jawan Taylor with a shoulder injury. Linebacker David Reese, we know what he can do. It would have been nice to see him get some more experience, but we've seen enough, I think, last fall. Defensive end Jordan Sherritt. So defensive end, some young guys will get more into the rotation there as Jabari Zuniga, Antonius Clayton. Freddie Swain, shoulder, and defensive back Quincy Litton with a foot. Other 3 players will be kind of limited. Dre Massey, who we just really can't wait to see him get on the field. Was probably the one player, if you go back and look at Jim McElwain's press conference last week, that just kind of gushed over. And I think reading what kind of McElwain was saying was going to be an even bigger part of the offense than I originally saw last year. I thought he'd be a pretty important part, but it really made it sound like Dre Massey was going to be a huge part of the offense last year until he got injured on the opening kickoff of the game. And defensive back CJ McWilliams also will be limited. There'll be non-contact during the spring. So we know, Massey, will he be using a return game again? Probably. I don't think that should scare him away from doing that. McElwain's quote about him was, that was a piece of the offense that we can put back now. We'll see what he can handle. So, of course, I think you got to go back and look at these receivers that's just going to be taking part in spring practice now with Antonio Callaway. Very important for him to be taking part in his first spring since he's been here. Tyree Cleveland, Josh Hammond. Those guys will be asked upon now with no Freddie Swain to be make more of an impact there. So that's another thing to look at. I thought was interesting is McElwain pretty much putting out there that Duke Dawson and Chauncey Gardner are both going to be the outside cornerbacks there. I know there was some thought that Duke or Chauncey maybe get stuck inside. Duke maybe not even moving from his nickel where he played primarily his career so far. But McElwain said that the plan is to move Dawson to cornerback. I think Putu also stays on the outside to back up once of Duke Dawson or Chauncey Gardner. So the question then becomes who lines up at nickel this spring. Chris Williamson, MacArthur Bennett, Christopher McWilliams, if they would be limited. But they'll all get a chance to play there, I think. And if those guys can't get it done, they won't have to wait this summer when Marco Wilson, Sean Davis, Brad Stewart, Christopher Henderson all get on campus and maybe they squeeze their, they squeeze their body into that nickel position. It's just I'm not necessarily I think we all remember what we saw from Chris Williamson and Putu last year, where they didn't get a lot of playing time toward the end of the year, even when Florida was kind of injury laden on the defensive side of the ball. It was just we didn't like what we saw the beginning of last year with those two guys. Maybe they've matured, maybe they've gotten better, but it's going to be interesting to see how that cornerback rotation works out. But Dawson isn't the only player moving to a new position this spring. Of course, I think we all kind of knew Martez Ivy was going to slide out from left guard to left tackle with the departure of David Sharp. One was Richard Deshair Jones is moving from offensive line to defensive line. Of course, Florida has much better numbers along the offensive line right now than they kind of do at defensive tackle where Deshair Jones may fit in. So I think that was a pretty interesting one. And Cameron Knight, tight end Cameron Knight, will move from tight end to linebacker, his big body there. It is now a fresh start for those guys going there. So kind of a summary of what Jim McElwain had to say the other day in his pre-spring press conference, looking there and seeing what's going to happen when the Gators hit the field on Tuesday. I think we'll all be excited. We'll be looking for that quarterback battle, of course, between Franks, Trask, and now Toney. We'll see how much those reps are split up. But, we won't get to see much. Don't take too much from what we see early on. It's just going to be a lot of easy stuff out there for those guys. And just, we're ready for it to get started. It's football. I think that there's nothing wrong with that. We get to talk about some actual football. Yes, we know it's not the amplitude of fall practice, but it is football we get to talk about. So It'll be a pretty short show. I just wanted to get that out there of what we're going to talk about here with that quarterback position and maybe some lack of confidence there. What Jim McElwain was saying, Kadarius Toney is going to be thrown in to the mix there. So as I mentioned, you can find all your Gators Breakdown episodes on SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube. Just search those sites. Get the links by following us on Twitter at Gators Breakdown and on Facebook. You can find me, Dave Waters, on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC. Co-host Joey on Twitter at JoeyV_SEC Sports, and Bill Sykes on Twitter at Real B Sykes there. So thanks for joining us. We'll probably join again another show late, maybe later this week. We'll see what happens with some news out of spring practice and talk about what we see there. But if not, it'll be another show next week. But we'll keep ramping these up. Gators Breakdown won't be going away anytime soon. And with spring practice, we'll try to throw a couple of episodes out a week. So I'm Dave. Thanks for joining me here on Gators Breakdown.